so.
Good evening. I'm Tom Carson, President of the League of Women Voters of Glendale, Burbank, and I'd like to welcome you to our two forums this evening. As we begin our evening of democracy in action, let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. If you'll all stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The League of Women Voters was started in 1920 when women won the right to vote. Membership in the League has been open to men for the last 40 years. Our forums this evening are being co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters Pasadena area, and I would like to acknowledge Marge Nichols and her fellow members for being here tonight. We are strong supporters of the election process, and we join all of the cities in our district in their efforts of encouraging voters to not only vote themselves, but also to get their friends and relatives to vote. For the June 7th election, the deadline for registering to vote or for changing your registration is Monday, May the 23rd. The questions you'll be hearing tonight are questions we have received from the public. We hope the candidates will find these questions to be challenging, enabling you, the voters, to make an informed decision. Tonight's candidate forum rules call for adherence to the terms of civil discourse by both candidates and the public. The hallmark of democracy is the willingness of all members of our community to treat each other with courtesy and respect, not just those with whom we agree. It is in that spirit that we are here this evening to engage in a vital part of our democratic process, a civilized discussion of the issues that are so important to us in our communities. So I want to thank all of the candidates and the audience for being here tonight. We also thank the City of Burbank for once again providing the facilities for these forums. We're particularly grateful to the assistance of Drew Sugars, the Burbank Public Information Officer, and his staff. We have many of our League members here tonight working to make this forum happen. I'm not sure I'll remember all of them, but Renee Lease, Mickey Pierce, my wife Chris, Marge Nichols, Robbie Davis, Petite Morrison, Rory Stevenson. There's a whole crowd here. This takes work. But we're glad to be here and we're glad to participate this. I would now like to introduce our moderator for this forum, Robbie Davis. Robbie is a longtime League member in Pasadena with much experience with moderating forums. We are grateful to Robbie for the many hours that she dedicates to the League. Robbie?
Thank you, Tom. Good evening and welcome to the candidate forum for the 25th State Senate District. There are 6 individuals running for this seat in the June 7th primary, and the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, will advance to the November 8th general election. This forum is being broadcast live this evening and then at various times until the election date on the Burbank channel and Burbank's YouTube channel. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the prior written permission of the League of Women Voters and the City of Burbank. No digital or other forms of photography or recording are permitted in these chambers during the forum. The audience here tonight is invited to submit written questions for the candidates. I think a lot of people have already submitted them, but if you have not, raise your hand and one of the monitors will give you a card and a pencil. And we will collect questions only during the opening statements and then the first 3 questions for the candidates. Due to the number of audience questions that we've already received and to our limited schedule, we may not be able to ask your particular question, but we hope that all of the important issues will be covered. We'd request that everyone in the audience turn off all your cell phones and pagers and refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters are disruptive during another candidate's remarks, the other candidate will be given additional time to compensate. Additionally, attacks of a personal nature, including private matters having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his or her remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him or her of the rule will be taken from their speaking time. All of the candidates for the 25th State Senate District were invited to participate in this forum. 3 of the candidates did not accept our invitation, and I would like to introduce the 3 candidates who are participating in this forum. They are in alphabetical order by last name: Catherine Perez-Estolano, Anthony Portantino, and Falente Riddle. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement, after which there will be a series of 12 questions. The first question will be addressed at candidate number 1, who will have 2 minutes to respond. Then candidates 2 and 3 will each have 1 minute to respond to the same question, and then the second question will be introduced to candidate number 2, and so on. So everybody will have a chance 4 times to be the first one to answer a question. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 2 minutes each for a closing statement, and the closing statements will be given in reverse order of the opening statements. And during the opening and closing statements and the questions, our timekeeper will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute, 30 seconds, and then a stop when you're out of time. Whoop, there's no stop sign. Where's the stop sign? Whoops. Okay, well.
She has a 15-second time.
I will make a gesture.
Yeah, so just go like that. Okay, so we will now begin with opening statements. 2 minutes. First, we'll have Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to participate in today's debate forum. I look forward to actually distinguishing what the different candidates bring to this particular seat. Again, my name is Catherine Perez-Estolano.
Oops.
Shall I wait? No worries. It happens.
Sorry.
No worries. It's okay. So again, are we okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Catherine Perez-Estolano. I'm a candidate for State Senate in District 25, and again, I thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to introduce myself, not only to the members, but to the community of Burbank and Glendale. I'm a small business owner, and I have a successful business, and I understand what it is to make payroll in the state of California. A lot of people depend on me and my work to be able to provide for their families. And so for me, running for State Senate brings a lot of professional experiences to the table. Specifically, I've worked in the public sector and in the nonprofit sector. Are we okay? Do you want to use my timer? I got a timer.
It just stopped.
I can start again.
What's that song? Do, 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 do.
No, it feels like Groundhog Day.
do.
I just keep doing the same thing over again. It's okay.
Well, you get to do it a third time.
They won't ever forget the long name, Catherine Perez-Estolano.
You can use mine.
Yeah, I know. We've got a bunch of timers.
Everybody has a phone.
Oh well.
Okay.
I give mine up.
Do you want? She can do it
I don't
on
want to hear it. I don't want to feel it buzz. So.
Turn it off.
Are we good? Okay. I'm patient. No worries. Okay. Ready. So again, my name is Catherine Perez-Estolano, and I'm running for state senate. As I said, I'm a small business owner, and I understand what it is to make payroll in the state of California. And I come to this because I believe that the state legislature needs to have people with professional diversity of background. We are addressing some major issues in the state. We've got housing, water security, education. We have things where people who have the experience to be able to be ready to take on these issues. So for me, having a background not only as a business owner, but also in the public sector and nonprofit sector, these are the things that I think Californians deserve when folks are creating legislation in the state capitol. So I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm not exactly sure what the timing situation is. Okay. So I'm also a professor. I teach at USC and UCLA in the graduate schools of planning, and so I understand the importance of good education. I understand the importance of quality education. But I also feel that it's important that Californians understand that there are some major issues that we need to have folks who, again, are ready to take on the big. I'm sorry, I can't tell. I'm sorry. Do we have 30 seconds? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So I've served on state commissions. I've been on local boards and nonprofits. I've done a number of things. I'm a parent as well. So I'm very invested in California and the future of California. And so I've been endorsed by key organizations such as the California League of Conservation Voters, Equality California, California Bicycle Coalition, as well as major caucuses in the state legislature, including the LGBT caucus and the Latino caucus. I'm a Thank you very much for your time again and again.
I apologize. Okay, Mr. Portantino, your two-minute opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Portantino, and first of all, I want to say thank you to the League for putting this on. I am a proud League member of the Pasadena chapter, so it's good to see the League continuing its great advocacy for voting and information. I also want to give a shout out to my 24-year-old daughter who showed up today. Thank you, Sophia, for being here. I'm the father of two daughters, a 14 and a 24. I'm a former state assembly member, and it's a pleasure to be here at Burbank City Council chambers. I was here yesterday for the selection of the new mayor, and I'm proud that the mayor of Burbank and the past mayor of Burbank have endorsed me for the state senate. I think Californians are tired of politics as usual, and when I was in the state legislature before, I tried to bring an advocacy for open government, for transparency, and I think I stood up for education, both K-12 and community colleges, and I got the battle scars to prove it. We need legislators who don't just say the right thing, but know how to do the right thing. And I think that is an important perspective that I bring to this table. No one can question the ability to stand up for what you believe in, and I've tried to do that both as a mayor, a council member, and then as a legislator. California is facing significant issues, but we also have a lot of promise. I was proud to be in the legislature when Measure R was crafted and saw that the goal line was funded and saw that the transit-oriented development along the San Gabriel Valley route is going to take place. I want to go back to make sure it's done right. I want to go back to make sure that the jobs we created for the gold line are done. I've been endorsed by the California Democratic Party, Planned Parenthood advocates of San Gabriel Valley and Pasadena, and this district has always had outstanding representation in the state senate, and I'm proud to say that the past 3 state senators who have represented this district, Carol Liu, Jack Scott, and current Congressman Adam Schiff, have all endorsed me, as well as the Sierra Club, and I look forward to answering questions tonight.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Riddle, your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Falante Riddle. It's French Creole. It's a little tongue twister. Thank you very much to the League for being here and to the City of Burbank. I was here a few weeks ago, actually, to introduce myself to another group of people. I grew up in the Altadena area and served 29 years with the Pasadena Police Department. Served in a number of capacities when literally no one looked like me. Worked in patrol and undercover, as well as vice narcotics ranks, where I became the first African American sergeant and as well as lieutenant. It was an amazing experience. When I transitioned, as my husband says, I don't know how to retire, I was recruited by the YWCA to be their interim executive director and partnered with Planned Parenthood to advocate to ensure that women had health care choices. I'm also an adjunct professor and teach a number of subjects, including ethics and unequal justice. I have my own small business and provide leadership development. I'm running because I know firsthand what it is for children not to be educated properly. Early childhood education is a key issue, as well as ensuring that families have the ability to raise their children. I'm so glad to see that this state has passed the 15-hour wage hike, and also, but we must understand that women, we still have pay equity issues, and we have to fight for that. I'm also looking at the issue of job creation. I love the goal line and the expansion, but it's not enough. We need to have affordable housing around those goal line issues to help people to make that transition. The other area of very concern is mental health. Mental health is not a crime, and we need to have sustainable wraparound services so people can be given a hand up. It's not a handout, but a hand up. And I look forward to discussing these issues and more with those that are here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're now going to begin the question period, and as I said, we're going to rotate who answers first. And so the first person to answer will get 2 minutes, then the other two people will get 1 minute each. So the first question is going to be directed at Ms. Perez-Estolano. The question is, in recent years, funding for our state's court system has been materially reduced. What proposals would you have to help ensure that the justice system is sufficiently restored so as to provide adequate and timely justice for our residents and businesses? So 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the question. It is a travesty. If you submit a grievance, you should be able to have your case heard in a timely fashion. And what we have is justice delayed, and so that's really, in my book, justice denied. And so the issue is, how do we actually allow our court system to be able to address the issues and the amount of cases that are filed. One of the issues that I think we are looking at, and having an understanding of our criminal justice system, is that we need to make sure that people have a streamlined opportunity to be able to make their case. That is the first issue. I think it's cumbersome for particularly people of various socioeconomic background. It is very challenging, and the issues are certainly ones where having to take a day off of work to be able to file your claim, these are not things that everyone can do. So what we want to do is make sure that it's accessible. The second thing is making sure that the courts are properly funded, and they haven't been. And I've talked to a number of judges about the situation, and they feel like their caseload is too heavy, and we haven't been able to provide them the resources to be able to meet the demand. And so one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we have a system whereby we allow people to be able to submit their claims, and they have the opportunity to be heard in a timely way. One of the things that I think is important is to be able to diversify the different kinds of cases that are filed. So if you have a claim, it's a certain kind of claim, there are different kinds of courts that actually can hear your claim based on the issue that you're having addressed. So we need to make sure that the system is actually performing well, that it's efficient. And right now, according to the friends of mine who have told me, we need to actually make sure that the system works better for Californians, because people are not being able to have their issues well heard.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Portantino, your 1 minute response.
Great. The courts oftentimes don't get the priority that other issues get when the state sits down and makes its budget. There's two problems with how we budget in Sacramento. First of all, we don't budget with transparency, and second of all, we don't prioritize. When I was in the legislature, and I plan to reintroduce it again if I'm blessed to win the state Senate seat, is a pay-as-you-go form of budgeting, where we actually have to identify our priorities and then bring the community and transparency to the table. Right now, budget bills show up at 2 o'clock in the morning and get voted on 15 minutes later. We should have budget bills in print for 3 days so people have a chance to review them, so the court advocates have an opportunity to come to the legislature before those bills are adopted and make sure that we articulate the importance of speedy, just justice in California. It's a matter of priorities, but it's also a matter of process. I'm going to change the process in the state Senate.
Thank you. And Ms. Riddle, your 1-minute response.
Thank you very much. As you know, I'm the one that has the law enforcement background and as well as the endorsements from many of the local law enforcement associations. And one of the areas that has happened continuously since the economic downturn is that there's been significant cuts within the court system, including drug court is gone. I used to be an advocate for drug court and to ensure that I worked with Brother Brian from the court system and to ensure that people that had drug addictions could go through drug court. And I also worked on a national program. Also, there's an issue with how we move forward on our criminal. The judges, DAs, and public defenders have been cut back. And so that funding needs to be put back from not just the county level, but we need to collaborate with legislators to ensure that there is a priority and we recognize that people are being negatively impacted by not having what we call their right to have a day in court and have services provided from those individuals, as well as the clerical staff who are also cut.
Thank you. Okay, next question is Mr. Portantino is going to start. And the question is, what is your position on the most recent plans for the 710 extension? Please explain what you see as potential benefits and cost to this extension. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Great question. I have been a leader for 20 years opposing the 710 above ground and below ground. We have the cost-benefit analysis. Imagine that. We forced Caltrans and MTA to release a cost-benefit analysis because of the direct advocacy at the California Transportation Commission and the leadership that I brought. The tunnel is a boondoggle, and there's not one shovel that's going to hit the ground. It is a travesty that we have spent millions of dollars of taxpayer money on a project that will literally make arterial traffic worse in the region, not better. The EIR, which is currently under the comment period, and I think I might have been the only candidate running for this office that actually sent a letter to the comment on the EIR. The EIR says that there will be no net air quality benefit, and for 15 years I've asked the Southern California Association of Governments to release the air quality information that they claim will get better, and the EIR has proven it wasn't. I wish Supervisor Antonovich was here as well, because he's been one of the biggest proponents of the 710 freeway, and I wish we could talk to him about how there's been efforts to undermine the environmental protection advocates who have been critical of the 710. You will find no greater, stronger advocate for sound transportation planning as opposed to the $15 billion boondoggle of the 710. Let me again say, this project will harm our region and not increase air quality. It is wrong for California. We should continue collectively to advocate. As a council member in La Cañada, I was the one that invited the city of South Pasadena to come make a presentation, and I've led rallies and press conferences and showed leadership on this issue, and nobody questions my advocacy for the no on 710.
Thank you. Ms. Riddle, your 1-minute response.
No on 710. I think we all agree pretty much on that. And we all have a very strong opinion. I know for a fact that my husband, who's in the audience, Eddie, thank you for being here, his family home was taken in 1968 through eminent domain, where the 210 westbound right at John Muir now goes. If they were going to do the 710 extension, that was the time. This is the 21st century. We have innovative, creative things that we can do, and this is not it. I look at the fact that I've spoken with the Metro Mr. Washington from Metro, and he has even said himself that the initial plans for the 710 are not coming through, but there are 5 other options on the table, and none of them actually meet the desires of any of the residents in Pasadena and South Pass and others. I was a traffic safety officer for a very long time, and that tunnel is going to be a disaster. I'm adamantly against the proposals for the 710. I'd like to see more green space. like to see us do some things that will help people realistically reduce the traffic congestions on the street. If anybody remembers when they just opened up the 210 going eastbound, it was literally gridlock within a day or two. So no on 710.
Okay. All right. Ms. Perez-Estolano, your response, please. 1 minute.
My first job out of graduate school was the first director of transportation for South Pasadena, which was basically doing two things, fighting the 710 and supporting the Gold Line construction through South Pasadena. I'm the only one on this panel that has a transportation planning background, and that's what I teach at USC and UCLA is transportation-oriented development and planning. And so it's a very simple solution. We just have to go, if any legislator in our district had any guts, you just go to Caltrans and erase that project off of Caltrans' list. That's what you have to do. And then you say to Caltrans, okay, we need to find another solution for goods movement, because goods movement and trucks are legitimate. That's a legitimate issue. Right now, EPA is saying that the environmental study that Anthony referred to is right now deficient. So the Environmental Protection Agency is actually saying that this is not going to work as an alternative for a tunnel. So the facts is that the project is not feasible, it's not environmentally sustainable, and it's not something that the region's going to pay for. So what we have to do is get serious in terms of the legislators that represent this area to just take it off Caltrans' list.
Thank you. Okay. The next question is directed first to Ms. Riddle. One continuing issue which has not been adequately addressed is the funding requirements needed for public employee retirement benefits. What would you propose to address the issue of underfunded public employee retirement benefits? And your 2-minute response?
Thank you very much. As I shared with you, I served 29 years and have an honorable retirement, and I am the benefactor of having a pension, as well as my husband. We worked very, very hard for those. One of the areas that is coming to all law enforcement and other public entities is that they need to and will continue to pay into their pension, because cities cannot sustain the full burden of that. Also, we need to look at how are we going to move forward to ensure that once an individual has the associations and the cities have negotiated moving forward, we need to educate individuals, communities, so that they know what the burden is. And it is part of the package to recruit good employees, be they teachers or other areas. One of the areas that is right now in Sacramento, I spoke with some of the persons that have endorsed me, including Senator Carol Liu and Senator Connie Leyva, is that how are we going to ensure that the state is able to continue to underwrite, if you will, the debt burden. So it is a necessary component for recruitment, but it's also a very necessary component for employees to help to offset some of that cost.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Perez-Estolano. Oh, hang on a second. So your answer regarding the public employee retirement benefits?
Well, my mother is still a lifelong school teacher, and she's benefited from her pension. And I believe very much in the public pension programs that have been made available to public employees. I've never had a pension. I'm a private business owner, and we make sure that our employees have access to 401ks. But that being said, it is an important benefit, particularly to young professionals. When you're thinking about young teachers and young police officers and young firefighters who make a decision to enter the public industry, I mean, that is something that I think we need to protect. So it is something that, in terms of the benefits, those are things, if they put into the program, they are entitled to those programs. And so we need to protect those. And what that does to city budgets is absolutely a real issue. What it does to the state is also a real issue. But those are protections that I think are very much guaranteed to folks who put into the program. I am not one. I'm an entrepreneur, so I've chosen a different route. But if you choose to work for our public agencies, you should have those benefits guaranteed.
Thank you. And Mr. Portantino.
Yeah, I don't have a pension. I've worked in the private sector before I went to the state legislature, and as you know, legislators don't have pensions. That being said, after my father passed away when I was 11, my family survived because of his federal pension. But for that and the $60 a month I got while I was in college, I don't know if I would have been able to put food on my table while I was in college. Public employees who work hard, who pay, who collectively bargain, should have their pensions protected. And it is a vital part of why people go into public employment, because they know they're not going to make the same amount as the private sector. We hope that we elect leaders from cities and counties and the state that negotiate in good faith, have fiscal solvency as part of the equation, and we hope that the employees who sit across the collective bargaining table also understand that having a fiscally solvent city is important, not only to the residents of the city, but to the employees of the city. So I have faith in the system, and I think I have faith in the people who work hard in the system.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is for Ms. Perez-Estolano. Do you support the current 2/3 supermajority to approve tax increases? If yes, why? And if not, what would you propose as an alternative?
That's a very good question. I actually think the 67% threshold, 67.7 actually, is actually a very high threshold, and it makes it very difficult to move things forward, including things like transportation, things like major stormwater infrastructure. These are getting in the weeds, but these are important issues that face all of our communities and affect our quality of life. So I would actually want to kind of look at that and make sure that we have the right percentage requirement in place. Because to be able to put together a marketing campaign that gets 67.7 secured is I think, an onerous position to be in, particularly if you're a public agency. And today, Metro is looking at a new transportation bill that is about $121 billion over 50 years. We all have to understand what that means for our respective communities, Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena. What does that mean in terms of our increased opportunity for mobility and accessibility? Is that something that we wanted to have our children and grandchildren be responsible for? But 67.7 is very high. What I would want to do is make sure that if we do adjust it, and there are conversations and have been legislative proposals to actually reduce particularly transportation levels, that we actually have a conversation with the public about what that means. What does it mean if we actually reduce it for certain issues? For example, water security. Water security is a very, very important issue for Californians. And if we were to look at a new tax or something like that, is that something where we'd want 67, almost 68% of people saying yes? That's 7 out of 10. So we need to understand what are the priorities we're facing, what are the urgent issues that we have to address. Is that the right adjustment? I'd have to say that it's on a case-by-case basis, and we'd have to make sure that we address it in a holistic way and really involve diverse communities in that conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Portantino, your 1-minute response.
I'm proud to chair the Pasadena City College Measure P Bond Oversight Committee, which benefited from lowering the passage rate to 55% for bonds. And I think one of the reasons why it's been so effective is the public knows specifically what it's going to get when it votes for a bond. That's why school bonds typically pass, while parcel taxes are much more difficult, though I served on the Measure LC Parcel Tax Committee, which successfully passed the parcel tax in locking out of Flint Ridge at the 2/3 threshold. So again, we made our case to the public rallied behind the cause and the purpose, and we were successful in getting it through. I'd also add that the Measure P $150 million bond for Pasadena City College has completed all of its projects under budget. And I don't know how often you can say that about large-scale public works projects, that we've actually done an outstanding job in coming under budget. I think the lowering to 55% is something that is a conversation that's going on. There's lots of folks who think it might be applicable for local governments who, again, answer directly to the residents of their district to have the tool in place. But I'd like to see specificity brought to the table on the issue.
Thank you. And Ms. Riddle, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. I think the 2/3 is too high, especially on the local level. It does bog down and make it very, very difficult for residents and for council persons, mayors, to move projects forward. And so I would like to see that reduced. On the state level, it's a conversation because you have to look at unintended consequences. Sometimes it may look like one thing from the perspective at the local level, but the state has a different perspective on various issues. And so it is a conversation, as Mr. Portantino did say, and at the in the Senate and the Assembly. And I know that they're looking at it very carefully, a case by case, but I think it needs to be reduced most definitely.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is going to be directed for Mr. Portantino. What specific types of programs would you recommend to keep film and TV jobs in California?
Well, I was happy to be in the legislature for 2 of the 3 recent tax credit programs, proudly supporting both of them. As a matter of fact, the extension that was authored the second time, I picked up the phone and I called the governor's office before the budget was finalized, and I said, I am not going to support a state budget unless it included entertainment tax credits. And I don't think any other of the 119 other legislators had the courage to pick up the phone and call down to the governor and say filmed entertainment is that important that I would not support a budget unless it included the tax credits. I currently sit on the California Film Commission implementing all 3 of those tax credits, the dollars that are left over from the first 2 and the dollars that have been programmed for the second. I actually am a former filmmaker. I came here to California to work in the entertainment industry, and I worked in it for about 18 years in production. I'm proud to say that my daughter sitting in the front row, who I just embarrassed, works at one of the studios as an entry-level position, and my wife also works at one of the studios. So you don't have to convince me how important filming in California. We need to do several things. A, continue to fund and increase the funding for the entertainment tax credits. One of the deficiencies of the final one that was drafted is it did not do enough to go after post-production and music production, so we need to expand the tax credits to include post, visual effects, and music. We're left largely out. We need to also make sure that state parks and state freeways and the state remains film-friendly. As a former location manager, I can tell you that there are some communities that are not as film-friendly as others, and we in La Cañada had a standing rule that if somebody needed a last-minute permit, we'd actually have council meetings on a Saturday to facilitate those permits. So the state needs to continue to be film friendly. We need to continue to fund tax credits, and as a film commissioner, I'm proud to say I implement them.
Thank you. Ms. Riddle, film and TV.
Thank you. It's Volante. That's right. Very, very concerned about the number of films and TV shows that are leaving this state. I do applaud the mayor of Los Angeles for moving tax credits back into the conversation, but it's not enough. Both my sister and my son are both under SAG. My son actually graduated from Lee Strasberg Academy and is now in the process of working on various films, but we're still not doing enough. I would love to see more film credits. When I was a police lieutenant, I actually oversaw the filming within the city and also worked to ensure that neighborhoods were not disrupted. And it is always not a win-win for neighbors, and you have to get a large number of people to approve those various filmings in their neighborhoods. But we can do more with collaboration and ensuring that people understand the benefit, not just to the film company, but also to our communities so that they will be more friendly.
Thank you. And Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Yes, thank you. I think the film and production industry here in Southern California is a cornerstone, particularly for LA County. And while there's other states that have tried to take our film industry from us, whether it was New Mexico, Texas, or Arizona, they failed because we have been the anchor for so many of those industries. And I met with the Motion Picture Association of America last year to discuss with them the film and tax credits proposal that was made, and they said it would have been great if we would have been consulted about that. I'm a collaborator, and I'm the kind of person that wants to meet with people to say, hey, what would benefit the industry that you work in? And so for me, being in collaboration, working in partnership with the MPAA and other film associations is critical to crafting the best legislation that would have the best outcome for that industry. So we're not going to lose the film industry to New Mexico or Arizona or Texas. We're going to keep it right here, but we have to take care of it. We have to nurture it. We have to make sure that we actually provide the programs to keep them here.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is, the 25th Senate District is home to great community colleges and a collection of small unified school districts. Prop 30 has been credited with helping to save public education in California. What would you believe should be done as a follow-on to Prop 30? And we'll start with Valente.
Yes, thank you.
2 minutes.
I absolutely appreciate and love our community colleges. I actually attended Pasadena City College right out of high school, and then went on to get my master's degree, my bachelor's degree, master's degree, and now I have my doctoral degree in psychology. And we can't do enough for our colleges, but I would like to see is, when I went, just dating myself, when I went to PCC, it was $6 it was called, an application fee. But I'd like to be able to see more vocational training from our high schools to our junior colleges, because those are where there are some creative, sustainable careers to ensure that young people have an opportunity and anyone getting their education. Prop 30 is the floor. I'd like to see it be raised. We need to continue to support that, but we need to do some other very creative things to ensure that we're putting more funding into our schools as well, and to our high schools as well as into our junior colleges. They're critical, not just for individuals to go on to obtain their bachelor's degrees, but also to do very creative job training. For instance, I worked on a strategic framework for Glendale Community College to help them to bring in more businesses to help them with their vocational training, so that individuals returning home who are veterans, individuals who are returning home from various different incarceration issues, they could have training so that they could go out and get a good job to move back into society. This, I think, junior college is the foundation, and that it needs to be funded, and I'd like to see, as a legislator, put that on a priority to ensure that they get the funding that they need.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Thank you very much for the question. My wife actually sits on the Community College Board of Governors, and I have to say that I have learned such a great deal about the pipeline that the community college system is for our entire workforce in the state of California, 2.1 million students. And I really believe, first of all, Prop 30 needs to be extended for our public education program. I also believe, well, first of all, in the 25th Senate District, we have Glendale, Citrus, as well as Pasadena City College. I went to PCC, sat on the Latino Advisory Committee for a number of years. It is amazing what those universities are doing with innovation and creativity. And I propose that we provide the first 2 years of community college for free for anybody who wants to go. 30% of the students that attend community college pay full freight. My son goes to LA City College. He pays full freight. 70% of students actually have some kind of Pell Grant or other opportunity. I say let's invest in the future workforce. Let's invest in those folks who want to go to community college.
Thank you.
Make it accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Portantino.
Yes, I'm proud that almost every community college trustee that represents one of the community colleges in our district has endorsed me, because I am one of the biggest champions for California's community college. As I said before, I chair the Pasadena City College Bond Measure P Oversight Committee, and I'm proud that a number of PCC trustees have endorsed me, as well as all 5 from Glendale Community College and 4 of the 5 from Citrus. I marched in the street to support Prop 30. I helped with the campaign and numerous rallies, including a rally at PCC to get Prop 30 passed so we could save public education, K-16 public education in the state of California. It is imperative that Prop 30 gets extended in the November election, and I've signed the petition to put it on the ballot and get it extended. California's community colleges are vital, and one of the things that I like about President Obama is he's the first president I've ever heard say the word community college. Most presidents focus on research universities, and President Obama and myself recognize that the number of students that go there need our care.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Ms. Perez-Estolano will begin, and it is, what is your position on the high-speed rail? Please explain.
Sure.
And you have 2 minutes.
Of course. I was an appointee to the High-Speed Rail Board of Directors for 2.5 years by Governor Brown. Governor Brown asked me to come and sit on the board, particularly because of my transportation and land use background. He really wanted me to work on the stations to make sure that they were environmentally sustainable and responsible development. So I was the only person of color, the only woman of color for 2 years until former Senator Lou Correa joined me. But I have to say that that is a game changer for California. This is a project that is a difficult project. I am disappointed that they have decided to go pivot north and not fulfill, I had hoped, the goal of going south to Union Station. The reason why I got on the board was very simply, I believe that it is going to be this centerpiece of innovation around transportation and mobility. We are going to have engineers, we're going to have scientists, we're going to have all kinds of people participating in that program. And when Florida and New York figure out that they want high-speed rail, they're going to come to California and say, how did you guys do it? How can we do it? How can we learn from you? So the innovation and potential's here. And when we started the program in Fresno State was going to lose all of its engineers to San Francisco and Los Angeles, but those students were staying in Fresno, in the Central Valley, to be able to start their careers, start their families, and begin the process of actually creating a program that would extend beyond our lifetime and be about the future. The things that the program didn't talk about was the fact that we were going to put broadband down the middle of that, really open up the Central Valley to internet access. We're going to make the station sustainability. In fact, the Burbank station right here is called the Eco District. It's very, very exciting stuff. And I did it because it wasn't about me as much as it was about the future generation and really putting California on the map in terms of creativity, transportation, and technology of the future.
Thank you. Mr. Portantino, high-speed rail.
High-speed rail is one of those large public works projects I talked about before. Sacramento planners, the designers should have a comprehensive financial plan before they move forward with a project of this size. I plan to introduce legislation, if I'm blessed to win this race, to say that any large public works project greater than $500 million needs a comprehensive financial plan in place before you proceed. The high-speed rail, in my mind, should have gone from Burbank Airport to Las Vegas, and we should have got Nevada to pay for half of it, because they would have done the benefit. I stand with the communities of Sunland Tujunga, which are afraid to death of what the high-speed rail is going to do with that community, and I stand with them and Congressman Schiff to make sure that whatever route gets finally decided does not negatively impact the 25th Senate District. And I think at the end of the day, we only are accountable to the residents of our district, not caucuses, not other people, not outside interests. We have to serve the interests of our community, and whether it's the 710 that's going to decimate our community or the high-speed rail in Sunland Tujunga, we need to be intelligent and strong.
Thank you. And Valente.
Thank you. I don't support the high-speed rail in its current form. It's been unsure on the route, and the funding is very murky. We need to be sure that before we go into something that expensive, that extensive, that we know exactly what's going on. And at this point, it's way too unsure, and there's no real transparency. There are too many other projects that I think that we could put our emphasis on, including early childhood education and restoring some other issues with mental health and job creation. The goal line and the various, transportations that are going along with that, that's where we need to put our emphasis. And right now, the high-speed rail initiative is just too unsure. So I do not support it in the state.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next question is going to be to Mr. Portantino. Many activists in our area have been working hard on issues such as poverty, homelessness, support for foster youth, and civil liberties. In your opinion, has the state been devoting sufficient resources in these areas? Please explain. 2 minutes.
Well, I would say no. The state, considering the budget crisis that we've been in for the last decade, has significantly cut our safety net, and it's been left to creative efforts to try to pick up the slack. I was proud to partner with the All Saints Foster Care Project on a number of foster care town hall meetings where I brought county services and colleges to the table to connect foster youth directly to services because there was no ombudsman to do that. So no, we need to increase our efforts on poverty, mental health. There's the connection between homelessness and mental health. 70% of the folks who are homeless have other issues. And, you know, one of the issues that I'm going to focus on when I hopefully get to Sacramento is mental health, because every family, including my own, has been touched by it. I know what it's like to see a brother let out of 3 county hospitals on day 14 who then took his own life. And so these are serious issues that affect all of us, and I think we all agree. The state needs to do more. I've tried to do what I could do. I worked very closely with the California Youth Connection on a number of bills for family reunification to provide extra training. I worked very closely with the USC School of Social Work to bring advocates for the social services directly into government positions to have influence. We need to budget, we need to plan, and now's the time to do it. We are out of the recession, and we need people who have the experience, who have the creative ideas, and who have the passion to see that the state prioritizes these issues, and I believe I'm that person.
Thank you very much. And Valente.
You know, as an officer throughout my career, but I would have to say within the last 15 years of that, mental health and homeless issues were the #1 issues for law enforcement. They did not have the training nor the resources, became the stopgap, and it's unfortunate. Mental health is #1 driving issue that is impacting our communities, and we are by no means even close to putting enough resources around to deal with this very, very serious issue. You know, I know that we had a really tough time when the economy was bad, but we have done an amazing job, and I thank the governor as well as the legislators for getting us out of some of that mess. But here's the deal. We have this rainy day fund. How many rain days are we going to have? So we need to relook at how we allocate resources so that people can be given a hand up. It's not a hand out, it's a hand up. It's not a crime to be mentally ill nor homeless. And everyone here, by the grace, should believe that they have an obligation to do more. And so as your senator, if I'm lucky enough to be that person, I will ensure that that happens.
Thank you. And Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Thank you. Very quickly on high-speed rail, to get back to that, the high-speed rail does have a business plan, and it is actually something that the legislature is reviewing. And just to be clear, you can't take transportation money and apply it to mental health or anything else, or education. So it's transportation money earmarked for transportation projects. So in regards to homelessness, this is the reason why I decided to run. I was sick and tired of watching people live on streets and frankly die in the streets. It's not right. It's an economic issue for the state. And so for me, coming from land use and transportation, understanding the real pieces of what you need to do to build housing near transit, to make sure that people are afforded a place to live, we can choose to do it. We just don't have the political will to make it happen. And this last legislature, former Speaker Atkins tried to do something and she couldn't get it out of the assembly. We need people in the legislature who understand how to do these things and make them happen. And I would absolutely, one of the first things I would do is work on a statewide affordable housing trust fund.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next question, we're going to start with Valente. A few years ago, Governor Jerry Brown ended the existing redevelopment programs for cities and counties. At this point, what do you believe should be done to foster appropriate redevelopment throughout the state?
Thank you. When Pasadena lost its redevelopment money, I can tell you it was a major hit. A lot of projects that were on the table, including affordable housing, including some senior housing, were gone overnight with that. And I know other cities, it had that same impact. And I was part of a task force with looking at how we can help to reestablish some of those guidelines. You know, one of the reasons that money was taken was because some cities were misusing that money outside of the guidelines that it was allocated originally for. Not all cities, but a few. But instead of ensuring that those individuals were penalized or that they had restrictions placed on them, everyone across the state lost their redevelopment money. I like to see how we can go back to the table, collaborate, and with the various cities, mayors, and leaders to ensure that we can have a dialogue about how we can reinstate that, because cities are crippled, literally crippled in some regards if they don't have that funding. That funding helps in so many ways, and one of the areas that we're all struggling with, not just in the 25th district but throughout, is how to ensure that we have affordable housing. Right now, 50% of most individuals' income goes towards rent. And that's too high. That's 2 and 3 jobs. So people, it's not even enough to say that the middle class is suffering, but those individuals that are lower in the worst shapes of our communities are suffering. And that redevelopment money would be a major help to getting people back, not just in the housing, but also to reestablish. I was the interim executive director at the YWCA, and the building that we were in was supposed to be rehabbed through redevelopment money. That money was gone, and now they've moved out.
Thank you. Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Yes, thank you. You know, redevelopment was abused, and I don't want redevelopment 2.0. I want rebuilding our communities 1.0. What we need is actually people who understand what it is to rebuild communities at the very local level. We need to link housing with transportation, with infrastructure, with climate change. We need to bring these things together so that we actually are using efficiently limited public funds. So I don't believe we need redevelopment. I used to work in redevelopment. I used to be able to use the redevelopment tools to build the housing that Falante just talked about. But the fact is that we're not going to have it again. And I actually don't want to see that again. I want to see us be smarter and actually understand the connections between how climate, infrastructure, housing, and transportation work. And that's the thing that I bring. I think it's important that when you have people in the legislature taking on these big issues, that they understand and have the professional background to be able to bring that to the table and say, I know exactly what it does to a city, I know what it does to private industry, and I know what it does to people on the street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Portantino.
One of the big reasons why most of the local elected officials throughout the 25th district support me is because I was one of the few people who stood up to the governor and said, we need to have redevelopment, and especially you cannot take the only economic development plan off the table without a replacement. Redevelopment funded affordable housing. It funded things like the Alex Theater, which Glendale almost had to sell because it lost redevelopment. It was the only statewide economic development plan, and I stood up for it, and I think the state made a mistake by not replacing it with a new development plan, and we do need economic development. When the state went after the gas tax that cities had, I stood up and made sure that the cities were protected and that local revenue stayed in cities. When the state wanted to raid local government, I helped put Prop 1A on the ballot, which protect local government, which said if the state comes to take it from Burbank, they got to pay it back with interest, and that passed with the highest percentage of any initiative in the state history. And I stand with the cities, and I will continue to stand for economic development in the cities in this district.
Thank you. Okay, next question is for Ms. Perez-Estolano. What do you see as the most urgent needs of the entire 25th State Senate District, and how do you believe they should be addressed?
Thank you.
It's just a simple question.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question because I actually interviewed some of our large employers. Before I decided to run, I sat down with JPL NASA, I sat down with Caltech, City of Hope, Claremont Colleges, and I asked them, what are the issues that you're facing? And they said the most urgent issue was not recruiting people and talent, It was keeping the talent because of the cost of housing. It was a very simple equation. They couldn't keep the salaries high enough to keep the talent. And so what's happening, in fact, there's a whole bunch of articles, if you build it, they'll come. They're going to live next to freeways. They'll live wherever if there's housing. We need to make sure that housing is affordable, accessible for working people, as well as those at the lower levels. And particularly for families. We have thousands and thousands of units going up in LA County. And I will tell you, I've talked to young professionals, and they're saying, you know, for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it's $2,500. So the way that they're affording that is to basically do 2 in each bedroom, 2, 2, and then 2 in the living room, so that they can live in the gig economy, so that they can be freelancers and do interesting things. But you know what? That's not sustainable. It's not good on our infrastructure. It's not the place I want to. I want my kids, and I, by the way, am a parent of 6 kids. I have a great deal in making sure that we have quality communities, that we have places where people say, yeah, we are providing excellent opportunities for people to thrive in Southern California. We simply don't have that. The fact is that there are some tools, redevelopment tools, enhanced infrastructure finance districts, AB2. There's been a bunch of stuff that has actually come through in the last handful of years to replace redevelopment, and they're not sufficient. What we need to do is address the most critical, urgent economic issue in the state, which I think is work-class housing, and we aren't doing it, and it's costing us, not only costing our seniors, which are being priced out of their units, but it's also costing us the future, these young professionals that are moving to Austin and to Denver, to other places that have much more lower cost of living.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Portantino, the most pressing need for the 25th.
The most pressing need for the 25th and the state of California is an education model that fits the 21st century economy. If you're 65 and older in California, we're the 4th most educated state in the country. If you're 25 in California, we're the 40th most educated state in the country. We are 3 million bachelor's degrees short of what we need to supply to meet the retirement rate of our aging population. There's 47 allied health professions that have job shortages. There's 17,000 doctors that we need. We have to create a education model that makes higher education affordable, that erases the line between high school and community college and guarantees that every student has a K-14 education and either articulates into the workforce with a training or onto a 4-year university where they excel. If you go to PCC or GCC and you transfer to a UC, you perform academically better than the student who went there as a freshman. The model works. We have to fund it, and we have to make sure that we have a workforce. I've set up a fellowship at the University of California for students from historically black colleges and Hispanic-serving universities to create a pipeline into MBA programs.
Thank you. And Flente.
Thank you. Rebuilding our middle class through job creation. Throughout my entire career with the public safety entity, as well as a small business person, YWCA, and other areas that I've worked through throughout this community, people are looking for jobs. They're looking for jobs that pay so that they can take care of their families. There has been a systematic divide, larger and larger and larger, with the middle class and falling out of the ability to take care of their day-to-day needs. My sister and her family literally just lived with me over 6 months because they couldn't find a place to live because they got outpriced from where they were living. They're now living out in Los Angeles. You know, I have 3 sons I shared with you. One went to Lee Strasberg Academy, but 2 others have their master's degrees, and I'll tell you, one has $100,000 worth of school debt. That's unacceptable. How is that young man and his wife ever going to get, and young people like them, into the middle class with that kind of school debt? So I'm looking for ways to create good jobs.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is for Mr. Portantino. What is your position on marriage equality and LGBT rights?
I've actually performed 3 LGBT weddings, I'm proud to say, and having grown up with a gay brother in the 70s and watching him be ostracized, it is a civil right that I fight for every single day of my life. And I'm proud to say that my daughter, who's sitting here, came home one day during the Prop 8 struggle and said, "Dad, can I stand on the corner with a homemade sign, no on Prop 8, so she and her friends could stand on the corner across the street from the kids who had the yes on Prop 8 signs." When you have a brother who is considered the Harvey Milk of San Diego, who lost his life fighting for civil rights his whole life, our founding fathers used the word all. They didn't use the word select. and every Californian and every American should have the right to marry the person they love.
Thank you. Ms. Flante.
Thank you very much. I absolutely support marriage equality. I look at the fact that in 1991-92, when I had my police partner share with me that he had HIV and introduced me to his partner, and the trauma that they went through and the acceptance, and it was tough. It was very, very tough, and no one was having those conversations then. And as he moved into, AIDS and then the hospice care, how difficult it was for them to get services as partners, and it just devastated me, because how can you treat people like that just because they love someone else? I look at the fact that we have to do more to show people that all people are accepted in this country, in this state, and that we don't get to say some are okay and some aren't. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the All Saints Rector Emeritus, Mr. Regis. I was very, very pleased to get his endorsement because he knows that I fight for equality.
Thank you. And Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Well, I married my wife, so I'm pretty serious about marriage equality. We have been married 3 years. We got married at All Saints Church, and we had our 6 children with us. And I did it for a lot of reasons. One, as I did it because I believe that it's important to not only send a message that it is, for me, I actually took my wife's name. That's why it's so long. I have added her name. I was endorsed by Equality California. I was endorsed by the LGBT caucus of the state legislature, and I have a great deal of support from Pride Pasadena and many members. I'm a member of All Saints. I will say that this is a personal issue for me. My children, I have lesbians in my family, I have trans in my family, and this is not just a theoretical concept. This is real for me. This is an issue that matters at a very direct level. And so I would just say, as a member of the state Senate, it would not be something I just put on as an advocacy issue. I would be taking this on as a personal life issue.
Thank you. And our last question is going to be directed at Flante. What is your position on gun control? Would you support stricter laws? Why or why not? 2 minutes.
Well, I can tell you. As a person who's been shot at a couple of times, I have very strong feelings about gun control. It's not that, people have a right to own a gun, but they also need to ensure that gun is secure. I just saw an email from Chief Sanchez where there was a couple of burglaries in Pasadena, and 4 guns were stolen, as well as a large amount of ammunition. The gun owner himself is a legal abiding citizen, but the fact that they didn't have it locked up. I went to Washington, D.C. and carried a letter on behalf of our stance with the city of Pasadena with Mr. Brady to show that we were absolutely adamantly opposed to assault weapons, and we were supporting the assault weapons ban. People need to be careful about having guns around children. I've seen the horrible, as a first responder, I've seen the horrible after effects of that, and also to ensure that if they're going to be a gun owner, individuals that are in their families who may have mental illness, they need to lock those up and be very, very careful with them. I am a gun owner. My guns are in a safe, and ammunition is somewhere else because I believe in responsible gun ownership. But I'm not an advocate for assault weapons, and also I'd like to see the rules change. One time in my 29 years, I worked a gun show, and I was appalled at how loose our gun laws were, that people could walk out with rifles and shotguns and ammunition with nothing more than a driver's license. It was outrageous, and we need to make sure that we close that loophole, because in the gun stores you have to go through a process, but at gun shows you just walk out, and that's unacceptable.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Perez-Estolano.
We have some of the strongest gun control requirements in the country, and we have 37 million guns in California. We only have 32 million people. So there's a lot of people with a lot of extra guns. I don't happen to own any guns. My family doesn't own any guns. we just don't do that. But I do believe it's a right. It's an amendment right that we are entitled to. But the thing is that if you own a gun, you need to be a responsible gun owner. And I think Falante is right. I would turn to her. I would turn to other people within the law enforcement to say, what else can we do to make sure that people who get guns and own guns, that we have protections for those who actually get in the way of guns. And I've been talking to a lot of residents. We've been all talking to a lot of residents. People are buying guns because they're afraid right now. And it is very, very disconcerting to me. I talked to a resident just the other day who said, I've never owned a gun until now. And so I would just offer that in this time, we need to make sure that gun ownership, we are protected, that we put in place as many of the regulations to ensure that the public safety is paramount.
Thank you. And Mr. Portantino.
We need leaders in California and in Washington who understand that this is a crisis. I am the candidate endorsed by the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence for this race because I stood up to the NRA. I got those hate phone calls. I got those emails because I took the open carry of weapons off Main Street, California. Not once, but twice I put bills on the governor's desk that were signed into law because rank-and-file police officers, communities, and the California police chiefs asked us to take guns off Main Street. We need to make sure that those who are mentally ill do not have access to guns. We need to make sure that we do not allow guns to be altered where they're used for prohibited purposes. California does have the strongest gun regulations, but there's only one of us running for this race who actually has a record of doing something about it.
Thank you. Okay, we are done with the audience questions, and now we are ready for our closing statements, and each one will be 2 minutes, and we will start with Falante.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you all very much for setting this up for us and allowing us to come in to let individuals know that, one, about us, but then secondarily, that we have very distinct backgrounds. I'm happy to have the endorsement of the sitting Senator Carol Liu, who not only endorsed me, but has done a fundraiser for me and has said that she will vote for me. Also, Congresswoman Judy Chu and Assemblymember Chris Holden, as well as the Legislative Women's Caucus, the Legislative Black Caucus, and the National Women's Political Caucus, and a host of others. I am adamantly supportive of ensuring that if I'm lucky enough to be your senator, that we invest in childhood education, those early years, preschool. Our children are so smart, and I've seen way too many children in middle school and high school fall through the cracks, and it's unacceptable. But when you're looking at early childhood education, you also must discuss ways to ensure that there is a way that for parents to have daycare, because a lot of parents, when I would go to homes and I was working truancy and so forth, couldn't put their children in school because they didn't have daycare. And you make the difference between going to work and putting your child in school, paying the rent. Also looking at how we can ensure that in the high schools, you have vocational training that moves on into vocational training in the junior colleges. It's a sustainable career. We can do wonderful things. If anybody's had a plumber lately, I can tell you it's a good job, all right? I also like to see job creation. Our infrastructure is failing. Those are jobs. The goal line extension are their jobs. Affordable housing, those are jobs. We need to invest in our middle class. That class system has become broader and broader, and we're not helping people with a hand up. And we can help our city leaders through the legislation to ensure that we're doing sustainable job creation. Thank you very much.
Mr. Portantino, your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you, League, for putting this on, and everybody who volunteered, and everybody who's here and at home watching. I'm honored to run. It's a privilege. It is an honor to serve, and I was proud to serve both as a council member or a mayor of a small town in this district, and then also as an assembly member for about 40% of this district, and currently as a California Film Commission. I'm also honored to be a visiting fellow at USC, where I developed a curriculum to teach values and leadership to young people, because that's the future of our state, embracing the spirit of young people and seeing that they have an opportunity to thrive and excel. And that's why I want to change the education education model from a K-12 post-secondary education to a K-14 system where we institutionalize doing more than a K-12 education. Back when we were manufacturing in a farming economy, you could go to high school, get a GM plant, and be part of the middle class. That economy doesn't exist anymore. We need to do better for our students than we are currently doing, and that's the passion that I bring. You can judge and know what somebody's going to do as a legislator or as a leader by what they've already done. And I have taken guns off Main Street, California, and I have stood up for education funding, and I have done the transit-oriented development through Measure R that's going to pave the way for jobs in the economy throughout the San Gabriel Valley. The leadership of the Gold Line Construction Authority supports me. Stonewall Democratic Club supports me because of my record on LGBT issues on merit. The California Democratic Party endorsed me not because Sacramento told them to, but because the grassroots activists said to Sacramento, you must endorse the person who's plugged in to our district. The communities along this foothill, the leadership in those cities have recognized my work ethic, my passion to the future of this state, and they've supported me. Stonewall, the California Democratic Party, and the last 3 senators to represent this district have all endorsed me, including Congressman Adam Schiff and Congresswoman Grace Napolitano.
Thank you.
And I'd be honored to have your consideration.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Perez-Estolano.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity to not only have this debate, but have the forum to really discuss the issues. I'm not a career politician. I've never held political office. I've worked with a lot of elected officials, and I've worked with a lot of elected officials on the issues of housing, infrastructure, transportation, big issues. But I've also had my own business. I understand what it is to make payroll. I understand the challenges of having a business here in California, but also the opportunity and entrepreneurial activity that is in our state and embedded in all of the people that are coming out of what I call an innovation corridor. We have an amazing constellation of assets, whether it's JPL, NASA, Caltech, City of Hope. They're churning out all these young people that they want to start their businesses here. They want to start their families here. And what I want to do is I want to take that energy and that enthusiasm and funnel that at the state. The state could be and should be doing more to help them, to help folks who are at the lower rung so that they have adequate housing. That is where I come from. And I really believe that we need to house people who are living here, people who want to join the California dream. Right now, we have, if I said the number 2050 to you, 2050, that is the cost of a 1-bedroom in California, averaged out between San Francisco and LA. 2050. That is too much for young people to be able to afford. And right now, it's costing people decisions about what, if they eat, if they provide for their families, or if they stay in California. I'm going to fight for people like that to stay here so that they can create opportunities for themselves and for their family. I am going to be that person that says, I know what it's like to start a business. I am a professor, and I teach them, and I ask them, stay here. Don't go to Austin. Don't go to Denver. Stay here in California. Start your family. Start your company. That's what I did. That's what I'm going to fight for LGBT, for Latinas and Latinos, and all the Californians throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, that concludes the 25th State Senate District portion of this forum. We would like to thank the candidates for participating. A vital part of our democratic process is the willingness of individuals like you to offer your services to represent our community, and we thank you all for running in this election. We'll now take a short intermission and resume with the candidate forum for the 5th Supervisorial District. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome back to the second part of our league forum tonight. We will now question the candidates for the 5th Supervisorial District. I would like to introduce our moderator for this forum, Mary Dixon. Mary is a longtime league member in Glendale and Burbank and currently our league's vice president. She has much experience in moderating forums, and we're grateful to Mary for the many hours that she dedicates to the league. Mary?
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for all your hard work on the forum. Good evening, and welcome to the Candidates Forum for County Supervisor in the 5th District. This forum is being broadcast live this evening, then at various times until the election date on the Burbank channel and Burbank's YouTube channel. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the prior written permission of the League of Women Voters in the City of Burbank. No digital or other forms of photography or recording are permitted in these chambers during the forum. The audience here tonight is invited to submit written questions for the candidates. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and one of the monitors will provide you with a card and a pencil. Questions will be collected only during the opening question and the first 2 follow-up questions. We would like to request that the audience now turn off all cell phones and pagers and that they refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters are disruptive during another candidate's remarks, the other candidate will be given additional time to compensate for the interruption. Attacks of a personal nature, including private matters having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of the office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his or her remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind them of the rule will be taken from their speaking time. I would like to begin by introducing the candidates for County Supervisor, 5th District. They are, in alphabetical order by last name, Catherine Barger, Elan Carr, Mitchell Englander, Bob Huff, Rajpal Kalan, Billy Malone, Ara James Najarian, and Daryl Park.
Thank you.
An initial group question will be addressed to all of the candidates. This is not our standard procedure. However, in light of the importance of this question and to ensure that all candidates have sufficient time to consider their response, we have provided this one question to all of the candidates in advance. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to respond to this question. Following this initial question, there will be 8 more questions. The first question will be addressed to candidate number 1 on the dais, who will have 2 minutes to respond. Candidates 2, 3, and 4 will then each have 1 minute to respond to the same question, and we will move through the dais in that manner. Each candidate will have a chance to be first in answering one of the questions. Following the question period, the candidates will be given a 1 minute each for a closing statement. During these responses, our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute when appropriate, 30 seconds, and then a stop sign when they are out of time. We will now begin with the questions. This is the group question. This is directed to all of the candidates. In connection with the introduction of the proposed 2017 LA County budget, the county CEO said that the county is committed to lifting the quality of life for all of our residents, but is challenged by the demand for county services that far exceeds the available financing sources. If elected, how would you prioritize the competing demands for county services in allocating available financial resources? Ms. Barger, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And really, this question, I think, is more directed to, given the fiscal restraints facing the county, what would my priorities be as county supervisor? And my first and foremost priority is public safety. We owe it to the residents of Los Angeles County as a quality of life issue to really ensure that we give our public safety partners the necessary resources moving forward. My second priority is addressing the issue of the homeless population, which is what I'm doing right now, working as a Chief Deputy Supervisor, working on a plan to address how we are going to use existing resources within the county, but also look at where are new resources available to address the homeless population. My third priority is something that I feel very strongly about. That is mental health services throughout the county. Again, it's something I'm working on right now, and expanding urgent care centers for our mentally ill, which also helps public safety and addresses the issue as it relates to the homeless population. So for me, it's all about looking at not only the existing resources, but understanding that we have a finite amount of resources available at the county. 2/3 of the county budget is already allocated to mandated federal and state programs. So it's important to have a supervisor that will understand how you allocate those resources.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, your 2-minute response, please.
Mary, thank you, and thanks to the Burbank Glendale League for putting this on, and thanks to the City of Burbank for hosting us. The most important job a government has, at any level, is to keep us safe. Because if we don't feel safe, if we can't leave our homes and know that we're going to come back in one piece and put our kids or grandkids on a bus and know that they're going to be safe, then there is no quality of life. And nothing also affects the viability of a business or the price of real estate more immediately and measurably than crime. Crime is way up. 20% in some of our communities, murders in some cases 27%, and home burglaries are at an epidemic. Now, my campaign is all about public safety because my career has been about public safety. For the last 10 years, I've been a criminal gang prosecutor, and I've put some of the worst gang members away behind bars where they belong. And before that, I spent a year in Iraq leading an anti-terrorism team, confronting the worst threats to our safety from overseas. And so I know how to keep American families safe. That's what I've been doing. But I'll be the first to say, as a gang prosecutor, that public safety isn't only about jail cells and handcuffs. Yes, we need more police on the streets, and we need more jail beds to end the early release program once and for all. But public safety also means taking care of our kids. It means fixing our schools so that our kids have a nurturing and empowering education with job training and after-school programs. It means bringing back quality jobs to Los Angeles County so that every family and every child has a chance to succeed. That's public safety too. And I'll tell you what else public safety means. It means taking care of our homeless population, especially our veterans. You know, as a combat veteran, I saw firsthand in Iraq what our service members go through. They deserve better than VA inefficiency and bureaucracy. And for homeless veterans, we need to do better to take care of our homeless veterans. Homeless population has reached 44,000 in LA County, and it's not right. And so I'm in this race to protect every family in our county, to keep us safe, to fix our schools so that our kids are taken care of, to bring quality jobs so that our kids have opportunity when they graduate, and then to take care of our homeless veterans, all of our homeless, but especially our veterans, so that we can rescue people who are on the street. If we do all of these things, we can give our kids the kind of future that they so richly deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Englander, your 2-minute response, please.
Great, thank you very much. And again, thank you to both the League and to Mary and Tom for hosting this really important forum. We truly appreciate it. You know, to me, a budget, particularly a municipal budget, they're not just numbers on a page. It's a list of priorities. It's the most important thing that we can possibly do. And the county has 88 cities, and in fact, over 100 unincorporated territories, where the county is actually the primary service provider for police, fire, public safety, infrastructure, trimming trees and potholes, and it's important that we look at that priority. And in fact, if you look at the services that the county provides, it provides services for those most vulnerable in society, seniors, youth, protecting all of us. As a police officer, as a first responder, both as a chair of public safety for the city of Los Angeles and the budget hawk on the city, when I was elected to the city council, we actually were looking down the barrel of $1 billion budget deficit. A $1 billion budget deficit today has been eliminated. And in fact, we have one of the highest reserves and credit ratings of any city in the country, with $100 million in a rainy day fund. To me, when we look at the budget, it's got to be a performance-based, priority-based budget system that's metric-driven, community-focused, and people-prioritized. You can't fix what you can't measure. I introduced performance-based budget initiatives in the city, and now you can do a deep dive with a dashboard online to figure out what services are being done, how they're being done, and the fact that they're measured with deliverable outcomes. The current county budget is not prioritized. In fact, there's important programs on there like homeless initiatives, veteran services, but there's no funding stream. That's not a priority list. That's a wish list. I have the experience to do it. This is an important race. In looking at the opening question on the budget, that is the list of priorities, and we've got to start with protecting our quality of life, and that includes public safety, infrastructure, and caring for our population, particularly those most vulnerable in society. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mr. Huff, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you, Mary and League, for hosting this forum tonight. So when you ask about how do you balance competing issues, it's never easy because, frankly, there's never enough money. There's never enough resources. So what I will describe to you is a process and a priority. I had the privilege of serving on a city council for 9 years, and we balanced our budget every year. And we did that by overestimating expenses, underestimating revenues. At the end of the year, we banked the difference. And over 9 years, we put away enough that the city was able to weather the financial storm that followed. At the state, it was a little different. 121 people involved in that process. I served on the budget up there many times, including vice chair in the Senate. And, it was tough making those cuts. And it comes back down to priorities. And public safety is my #1 priority. But I think what you need to understand is, as I look at this, it's not just about the expense side of the ledger, it's the revenue side of the ledger. And any budget is just a guess. It's a point in time. You say, we think we're going to have this much money, we think we're going to have these many expenses. So on the revenue side, I'm going to look at every decision about how can we create more private sector jobs, because that's what drives the budget. That's what gives us the resources to spend. And that's foundational. So that's #1, looking at the revenue side, always trying to build that up. But when it comes to the other side, on the expense side, public safety is #1, and that takes many different forms. But you also have to keep in mind that, as was mentioned previously, we have unincorporated areas that are donor areas. And they feel like they're left out many times. And I'm going to give priority to those unincorporated areas because, frankly, I was in a community that was that for a while. And when we incorporated, we were able to put twice as many cops on the street. We were able to do a lot of services we were not able to do because the county looked at us as a donor area. So I want to take care of them. But our foster care system needs more resources. I would implement zero-based budget. We did in the city. I tried at the state, wasn't able to do it. But at the county, I think we have to, because we have to live within our means. I'll be looking at both sides of the equation. I think it's a framework that has worked and will work for the county, and I would appreciate the opportunity to work on that.
Thank you. You want to reset then? You ready? Mr. Kalon, your 2-minute response, please.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for the wonderful question. Public safety is very important. We want to make sure all our citizens, they feel safe when they go out to work or shopping or wherever they go. And second one I have is a homeless population. We have 12% of homeless people, they're living in Antelope Valley. They are getting 2% of fair share from the LA County. They are always shortchanged by 10%. So that will be, we want to make sure we treat them fairly and they will get what they deserve. That will be 12% for them, not 2%, because they are 12% of population living there. Also for the foster children, in 2012, I told them we need to hire more social worker. Finally, they did that recently. If they could have done that early in 2012, we could save the Palmdale boy, Gabriel Fernandez, who was beaten by his stepfather for quite a bit of time, and then he died because of short in social services was not there on time. And mental health issues is very important in our community. We have lots of people. I meet them just about in community when I go out, because that's where I run my campaign outside and talk to people. And some of those mental health people, they are not getting enough help from the government, such as for not getting proper medication, or they are just, if they have some problem, just take them up and lock them at the jail. So we need to take care of them. And women abuse in Antelope Valley is very high. That will be my #1 priority. And I will put all the resource for the women abuse need to be stopped, especially in Antelope Valley is #1. of the women abuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. And thank you again, like everybody else, for hosting the event. We really appreciate the opportunity to answer the questions and get our voices out. When it comes to prioritizing for particular services and programs, and what do you prioritize to make it fair to everybody, that's a really difficult question. And what I propose is we always look at the end conclusion to any question. It's like we throw more money at it, and that's what we're doing. What I like to do is look at the beginning of the cause and prevent it from there. And I'll give you an example with our foster care system. According to Friends of the Children, 70% of all inmates have been through the foster care system. Only 1% of the foster care children will graduate college. 26% of all foster kids will be homeless within 2 years of aging out. 50% of all foster care females by the age of 19 will be pregnant. If you want to decrease the amount of money you're spending on programs or prioritize it, it means that we take care of those issues before they happen. Then we won't be spending the money on those programs because there'll be no need for those programs. Rather than just throwing money at a topic at the top end, we need to take care of the bottom end. When you're talking about the foster care system, we can do that with education, with intervention, more foster parents. The answers are in the foster kids, the ones that were successful out of the system, the ones that know how the system worked best for them. If we do that, focus our priorities at the beginning, before the problem occurs, rather than at the end, we can actually eliminate the options of saying, well, do we want to prioritize this or prioritize that? And I think that's important, to put the focus where the need is, not a Band-Aid at the end.
Thank you. Go ahead and reset it. You can stop it. Mr. Najarian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this and many other informative debates this election season. This question that was posed and the premise by the CEO of LA County is really the ultimate question that any supervisor faces. And for myself, it's not a strange question. It's not an unusual question, because for the past 12 years, when I served as the mayor of Glendale and as a council person, we faced this question every year. How do you allocate your resources? And it's very difficult. And although Glendale is much smaller than the LA County jurisdiction, and although the issues are much narrower, it still hits home. How do you allocate your resources? Well, there's a few truths and a few premises that I have when I go into setting a budget. And number one, that's not to dip into your reserve funds for an ongoing expense, because soon you will deplete those reserves and really be in a hard situation when you do need that rainy day fund for the cataclysmic event. We have to look at operating efficiencies in all the departments, and every department in LA County can cut its waste. We have to make sure that we don't put frivolous expenditures out on expensive things like IT expenditures, that if you pick the wrong programming, you could be tens of millions of dollars in the hole. But when it comes to setting priorities, I believe in the utilitarian concept of providing the greatest good for the greatest number. And that means helping our children in the foster care system, reducing the caseload of the caseworkers from 25 to 15, and making sure we have a safe society, and helping the homeless, and helping the veterans. It's in that manner that we can do the best for all the residents of LA County. It's a huge task, but I'm up for it with all I'm worth.
Thank you. Mr. Park, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. The answer to the question is that there is enough money. The budget of this county is $30 billion. There's more than enough money to solve all of these problems. I have to level with you and say we're not spending the money properly. You look at our homeless problem. The average homeless person costs $40,000 a year to sit in the median, to sleep under a bridge. That doesn't make sense. The state of Utah figured out you can house those folks for $6,000. You give them counseling, you give them rehab, you give them some other services. It costs less than $20,000. So we save half the money, and we no longer have a homeless population. You look at our Sheriff's Department abuse claims, $45 million the sheriffs paid out last year. The true cost of the problem is probably closer to $1 billion. We need to change how we do things with the Sheriff's Department. You look at the average kid in juvenile hall costs you $234,000 a year. There's programs all over the world. Scandinavia is a perfect example where you can do amazing things, have really low recidivism rate for less than $70,000 a year. The money is there. We need to spend it properly, and we need to stop wasting your billions and billions and billions of dollars. One of the things that we can do is we look at this budget is actually solve problems. I worked in the White House complex for 10 years. The budget was balanced 4 times. The last time we did it, we had a surplus of almost $500 billion. You don't get that by cutting things. You get that by solving problems. Once you solve the problems, there is crazy money that we can spend on infrastructure and other things that we need in this county. So don't let anybody tell you that you have to cut. If you cut, you're doing the wrong thing. If you solve the problem, that is the right answer. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move into the questions for the individual candidates with responses by 3 other candidates, and we'll continue. Question number...
The timing is 2 minutes.
The 2 minutes? Right.
And 1 minute for each of the others.
Right. So the question is directed to the candidate. Candidate gets 2 minutes, and then the responses get 1 minute. Thank you. And the first question is directed to Ms. Barger. The Board of Supervisors recently estimated that an additional $500 million per year is needed to address problems of the homeless in LA County. They are seeking ways to finance this work, including support from all of the cities in the county, as well as increasing various county taxes. What do you believe the county should do to find adequate financing for this major issue in our community?
Well, first of all, what we did in the county is we have allocated $100 million out of our redevelopment surplus fund that came as a result of the state disillusioning of redevelopment. Right now, we are working with our stakeholders because the county alone should not be expected to solve this problem. We have 88 cities, all of which have different needs. What's going to be necessary in Glendale may not be what happens in the Antelope Valley. So we have stakeholders coming in and working with us on a plan. It's looking at the existing resources and ensuring that we are using them properly, but also looking at things, not just a parcel tax, but looking at areas where we can generate revenue. When we talk about jobs, building jobs, we need to do more to build a middle class. And when we get these homeless off the street and offer them job training, we have a place to give them work. So it's not just about throwing money at the problem, but for me, it's about looking at existing resources and ensuring that we are exhausting everything within the county and the cities prior to going to our taxpayers and asking them to foot the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, your 1 minute response, please.
We do not have adequate facilities to treat people who are mentally ill and drug addicted, and those two go hand in hand. I know because I've prosecuted defendants who are mentally ill. In fact, I've volunteered to help stand up a new court system, the Community Collaborative Court System of LA, which finds alternatives to incarceration, to prison and jail, for the mentally ill, the homeless, and the drug addicted. We don't have facilities sufficiently to house them and treat them. We must invest in this. We've got to have facilities that take care of those who are mentally ill and those who are drug addicted, and treat them and find alternatives to living on the street or to prison for those people. I'll say something else. There's another homeless crisis too. We have 2 homeless crises. The other one is people who are not mentally ill who simply can't afford housing. The cost of housing in LA County has become prohibitive. We have got to clear the way for developers to build more housing. Those projects are in the pike. But because of the red tape, the suffocating red tape and bureaucracy, we're not getting those projects done. We've got to clear the way so that our developers can build more houses, increase supply, and bring down costs for all of our hardworking families.
Thank you. Mr. Englander, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. This is a chronic issue, and it affects every community of all levels of income. It's also one that's very personal to me. My family was homeless when I was young, and my father was a 100% disabled vet. With that, we've got to look at, and one of the things I have is proven experience in working with this and streamlining the expedited process, is working with both the community and on the development side and creating density bonuses for affordable, low-income, and transitional housing in every community. I just opened up, in fact, a nonprofit with no taxpayer funds that has a 91-bed facility right in my neighborhood. With that, we also have to have a housing first model, no wrong door. You can't expect to go to a veteran or somebody with mental health or developmental disabilities or chronic alcoholism or drug addiction and tell them to go get sober, go crawl back into a tent or a cardboard box, and then come back once they've been sober for a month, and then we'll put them on a housing list. We've got to have a no wrong door policy and start working with all the faith-based communities, the nonprofits, and there are ways to do it, and I've got the models and have done it.
Thank you. Mr. Huff, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, thank you. I think part of it is we have to figure out what's driving it. In talking to some of the Skid Row experts, they say our foster care system, I've heard the number as high as 50% are on the streets within 2 years of being emancipated. We need to do a better job, perhaps, bringing life coaches along with them. We have emptied our prisons at the state in response to mandates by the judges, and in so doing, we've outsourced our misery to the local level, and the local jails have gone out in the streets. Many of them become homeless. Many of them have mental health issues, so it's all interrelated, but if we can find the drivers of it, we can help reduce the population. Additionally, the Utah model has been brought up, and it may not be humanitarian reasons that drove it, it was economic, but there is sense that made out of taking those that are costing the system the most, getting them help, and then you bring the cost down. So we should be able to live within our means on that. So the housing first model, I think, is important. There's a lot of nonprofits that are already engaged in this. There's a lot of faith groups that are engaged in this. We need to help and come alongside. The government itself can't solve all of it, but we can do a lot smarter, and we can reallocate the resources.
Thank you. Question number 2. And the next question is directed to Mr. Carr. You'll have 2 minutes for your response. The Board of Supervisors recently approved the first ever Chief Sustainability Officer position for Los Angeles County, with the hope of accelerating their vision of increasing environmentally sustainable practices across the county. What areas would you prioritize for the work of this office?
Well, that's a terrific question, because I think, first of all, I applaud the county for having a Chief Sustainability Officer. I think that's critically important. One of the key areas where we can improve on sustainability is how we use water. You know, this is an amazing issue. We have a drought, a serious drought, that no one seemed to have planned for. And now they tell us not to flush our toilets, but meanwhile they're bursting water mains that dump millions of gallons of water into the street, and the public looks at this and shakes its head and says, what is going on? Why is our infrastructure in such disrepair? So we've got to look at sustainability in water as well. We waste 20% of our water supply to leaks and waste. This is so important to me that I was part of a California delegation to participate in a conference on the California drought in Jerusalem, where we met with every water guru and water tech innovator in Israel. As supervisor, I'm going to bring those technologies, the best-in-class technologies from around the world, to LA County to work on our infrastructure. Smart meters that detect leaks and cut off sections of piping. Local hub reclamation, where you don't have to repipe an entire city, but you can have reclaimed water for lawns reclaimed in certain communities and in certain neighborhoods, and that's much cheaper. Better agricultural technology. These are all things we can do, and of course desalinization, but first we have to work on the supply we're losing. And so this is critically important. Now then, on sustainability for developments. New developments have got to have sustainable energy sources. And I'm so grateful now that LA County is pushing for our new developments to incorporate technologies like the Purple Pipe and others that are green, that are sustainable, and that ensure the promise of our environment, our clean air, our clean water, our natural habitats for future generations.
Thank you. Mr. Englander, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. I think it's critically important that we have a Chief Sustainability Officer. In fact, this has been one of my passions. And just today, I was endorsed by the Los Angeles League of Conservation Voters for a lot of the work that I've been doing for the environment as well. I represent the area that is Porter Ranch, where we've relocated 20,000 people out of their homes, close to schools. We've got to look at the air we breathe, the water we drink, and looking at water quality and sustainable resources and what we've got to do. The first thing we have to do is this. In the county of Los Angeles, most of our rivers are paved and our streets aren't. Only in LA. So we've got to unpave that so we can slow the water flow down, capture that, let it percolate, and clean the aquifers. In Los Angeles, I led the effort for the LID initiative for the low impact development so we can capture stormwater runoff at all new development projects. So I've been both a conservationist, an environmentalist, and a co-author of Renew LA so we can look at waste management, not landfill right in our backyards, but clean conversion technologies, new and emerging technologies, and study that all over the world. So there's a lot we need to do, and I welcome the report.
Thank you. Mr. Huff, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I applaud the creation of a Chief Sustainability Officer. When I was growing up, that was my father's role, although we didn't call him that. But he was the one that reminded us if the refrigerator door was open, it was costing a nickel. It was a lot of money back then. If we left the window open, if we left the light on, if we left the water running, all of those things. So I think that when you're talking about sustainable, it's about using our resources more wisely, and frankly, the state can save money when they're set up for doing that. So it's important from a bottom line standpoint. When it comes to landfills, we've learned a lot through recycling. Over the years, I remember being on a council when we were mandated to put out 3 barrels or at least find a way to reduce the stream, and we did that to the degree that our landfills have had a lot longer life. So that also has been a good byproduct of it. Water has been mentioned. There's a lot we can do about water. We have some huge aquifers underneath us that have pollution from industrial and many times the aerospace industries, but as we clean that up, and I've helped get state money to do that, then we can use those more responsibly. So there's many ways we can incorporate it to help save money. Thank you.
Mr. Kalon, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, ma'am. Los Angeles County, they have very bad policy for the water well test in unincorporated area. When you drill a well, you have to do 72-hour test non-stop. Then the county will issue the permit to build your house. So if you done 70 hours, you waste all the water going in the desert. It's such a bad policy, which was created by the Board of Supervisor. And that was totally a violation of boards when they did this thing, so that need to be changed. And I have talked to Board of Supervisor several times, and there's no response for them. That's just a bad policy. 72-hour test and showing 7 gallons per minute, that's just waste of water. Okay. And that was created by the Board of Supervisor, and they are actually in violation when they change the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to question number 3 now, and this question will be directed to Mr. Englander, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond. What are the characteristics and attributes of the population environments in the 5th District which would be important to the newly elected supervisor?
Thank you very much. This is one of the most diverse populations by far, bar none, in the country. You start looking at the different populations, the natural habitat, the fact that the 5th District is 2,800 square miles roughly, all the way from the Antelope Valley to Chatsworth to Laverne, Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, and everything in between, with a lot of rural towns, different dialects and communities. We've got to make sure that we communicate particularly and have a regular dialogue with all of those communities of diversified populations, but particularly to the unincorporated areas and the local cities, is having a partnership and a dialogue. So one of the things that I've done as a city council member representing the furthest area from City Hall and downtown is I bring together all of the communities and the stakeholders on a regular basis for conversations with councils. We sit down for a full day every quarter. I'd like to do the same thing where these town councils have a voice and a seat at the table. And looking at these communities, the most important thing, you go back to populations and need, is communication and collaboration. Working with the faith-based organizations, working with our community stakeholders, the town councils and the various city councils. It's the most important job of a county supervisor is to understand understand the needs of each and different community. Whether it's protecting open space, I've created 4 new parks in my area as well, or making sure that we're protecting the natural habitat. And so all of these communities are so very different. Understanding those unique qualities, preserving, protecting, and fighting for them is critically important. They have different transportation needs, housing needs, economic development opportunities, but they have to be protected and understood from each perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Huff, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. Well, the 5th District is the most diverse in many ways. It's half of the landmass of LA County, which is significant in itself, but it's also got the highest points with the mountains, the San Gabriel Valley Mountains, which are a huge resource. It has desert, it has farming area. The diversity, all of those things need to be understood. And to the degree that government protects things, protect, but still allow recreation in. And as far as ethnic diversity, we have the highest Asian American population. We have a huge Armenian population. And so we have a great opportunity to help bring those communities together and fully integrate. You know, my wife is Chinese, and we enjoy a very good relationship with the Asian American population. And immigrants have their own needs. They see themselves differently. They often just working hard, want to make sure the government doesn't hurt them. They just want their kids to get a better education so they can have a better life than they had. And so we have a lot of opportunity as a supervisor to help impact them positively or negatively. Our resources positively or negatively. It takes a balanced approach with anything, and that's what I bring to the table.
Thank you. Mr. Kalon, your 1-minute response, please.
Especially in the 5th District, there is a disconnect between County Board of Supervisor and the public. We have lots of problems in our community between Black and Hispanic. They are not treated fairly by the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. So many times we have noticed, as you know that, they have lots of people locked up in the jail, which they have not even committed the crime, especially when they are Black or they are Hispanic. So that's not fair share. So supervisor need to be available when public need to say something or speak to them something. But our county supervisor have no time. When you call them, they say, we will get back to you, and they never do. So we need supervisor who going to listen to the public and who going to be fair with the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. My mother had this expression in England that said, if you take care of the pennies, the pounds take care of themselves. That would be, if you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. Always go to the extremity and make sure that's okay. If that's taken care of, you fill everything else in between. Unincorporated county is the areas that we have to take care of first. That is our responsibility. They have nowhere else to lean on. I spent a lot of time in northern Antelope Valley. You got 3 Points, California. There's a population of 65 people. It says 200, but it's about 65 ongoing. If you go to those communities, you find out what their needs are, and you make sure those are met. If you're reaching the furthest corners of anything, you know everything else in between is taken care of. So reach as far as you can, come back, and work your way back from there. Our community, as everyone's mentioned, especially this district, is so large, 2,800 square miles, so that's a lot to cover, right? If you focus on only one area or one city, you're going to ignore everything else. So preserving the county, start at the furthest points possible, the smallest communities, and work your way back.
Thank you. Question number 4. This question will be directed to Mr. Huff, and you will have 2 minutes for as the initial responder. The protection of vulnerable children is a continuing problem in our county. Do you believe that the current Board of Supervisors and the staff have properly addressed the current situation and developed adequate solutions to resolve some of the major issues? Please explain your answer and what alternative solutions you might recommend.
I do not believe they have protected them as well as they should. Our foster kids in particular are bounced around from home to home in ways that leave them so messed up by the time they get out of the system that, as we have talked about before, half of them are on the streets within a couple of years. Many of them are pregnant. So we must do a better job of coming alongside of them, And one of the solutions that I would say is we have to have more resources, and I would advocate for preschool for anybody in the protective custody of the county from birth till preschool, because they don't have the system around them of nurturing parents. So I think that's very critical. I think they take a higher order of assistance because of their vulnerability. And when they get out, I believe they should have life coaches for a while till they get established, to the degree that we can do that. Not everything is possible, but what is not working now, we need to work on. At the state level, I have tried to work and free up resources, and frankly have partnered with the County of LA the last few years addressing this, and we've made some progress. One area as well of these kids that get caught into sex trafficking, and we're changing the way that we deal them from being the perpetrator of the crimes to the victims. And so we are trying to decriminalize prostitution for these young kids that are themselves sucked into the sex trade, and going after the Johns, who are the ones that are creating the demand. And I have a bill right now that at the state that would disaggregate the data. Right now, we treat the provider of sex the same as the consumer of sex. And when we start to understand how many of these are purchasing from young kids, we'll also be able to help better protect them and give them the help that they need.
Thank you. Mr. Kalon, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, ma'am. Caseload on the social worker. Caseload need to be reduced on social worker because they have lots of students to deal with. So that's number one. And number two, we need unannounced visit to the foster parent's house, and we need unannounced visit to the school. Also, I think we should have a report card when the social worker go visit the foster parent's house. He should look the child and make a quick report card, see how the kid is looking, how is his appearance, how is his health, how is his hair, how does he look like. So I think that's very important, and especially the caseload need to be reduced on social worker, because they cannot do their job right because of sometimes they have like 30 kids, but they don't have enough time to cover all that area. So that is really need this help there. And also, there's lots of parents, they have foster children not because they care about the child. They want child because they need their paycheck for themselves. So that's very important. We need to take a look in that before we put the child to a foster parent's house. Make sure the parents, they need the child or they need the check. As I said, so many of them, they need the child just because of the money, but they care less about the child. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone, your 1-minute response, please.
We can never do enough to support the children in our care. It's personal to me as well. I'll give you an example. My grandmother was a foster child. When she became senile in old age, we couldn't have appliances in the house because the little red light used to remind her of when she used to be locked in the coal shed and burnt with cigarettes. Kids get tortured in foster care, but like I mentioned before, what we can do is we start from the ground up and we work with others. There are many other outside groups out there, like Together We Rise, which was started by aged out foster kids. They do an amazing job nationally. They bring awareness. If you watch their website, you'll be falling over yourself wanting to go out there and reach out and support these kids. We got to stop the negative talks. We got to start the positive talks. When a child comes into care, we are their parent and guardian, and we have to take that responsibility not lightly and realize we are their guardian.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. Children are clearly the most vulnerable members of our society, and the Board of Supervisors owe it to maintain and protect their safety. This past year, for the 2016 budget, there was an increase of $12 million in the child services budget, which plays out to about an 80 member increase in social workers. It's still not enough. The head of Children's Services said we need 500 more workers to lower the caseloads from sometimes up to 30 down to 15. And what happens is it gives the caseworkers time to go in, to sit down with the family, to see the child, to see the environment. And that's the way our trained caseworkers can detect if there's a problem or not. So we do have to put more money to protect our children, lower the caseload, and give those professionals the time that they need to assess the vulnerability of the children and protect them
at all costs.
Thank you. Moving on to question number 5, and this question is directed to Mr. Kalon. You'll have 2 minutes for your response. 34% of county students walk or bike to school, and motor vehicle crashes are a leading cause of death for school-age youth. Metro is currently drafting a countywide safe routes to school strategic plan, but without an implementation strategy or dedicated funding. Do you support implementation of this kind of program with dedicated funding? Please explain.
Yes, I do support that. And also we need to have more crossing guard, because I personally witnessed so many schools, they don't even have crossing guards, and the children are taking risk to cross the streets. So that's need to be done. And also, so many children, they live very, very far from the house, so they have to long walk. And that also need to be taken a look. And we need so many schools, they don't have a bus service, school bus, to take those child to that far from where they live. So especially in the east side of Palmdale, I have witnessed this thing. And again, as I said, the crossing guard are very important, because so many of those students, they are crossing the very busy street without the crossing guard. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone, your 1 minute response, please.
Absolutely support it. We have to do everything we can to make it, it's hard enough for students as is right now to go for college and the student loans and everything else. We make using bicycles and whatever means they can to get to and from the schools and make it as safe as possible. We have to support whatever we can to help them to do that. We need to make sure we bring a public awareness to that. We need to increase the bike paths right now, which is happening, but we need to increase it further. Public awareness. Recently, I was driving down one of the streets in an unincorporated area, and one of the school bus stopped, and the stop came out. Not one single car stopped. So I spoke to the sheriffs, and the sheriffs have actually put out more awareness to that program. So we need to make sure that, one, yes, we support it financially and otherwise, and two, we bring public awareness to the issue, and we support more ways for people to get to and from school, including discount and other services to use the metro system.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1 minute response, please.
Thank you. I actually have been working on the Safe Routes to School program for the county for many years. I do sit on the Metro Board. I do represent Burbank and Glendale and much of the 5th District on the Metro Board, and we're working hard to make sure that children and adults and seniors have safe pedestrian walkways and safe bikeways. Just recently, this year, for the city of Burbank, I was able to obtain $830,000 for pedestrian improvements. This is the only way that we can help get people out of their single-occupant vehicles. Mom and dad don't have to drive the kids to school every day. Let the kids get a healthy start on the day by walking or biking. There are funds that are available from the federal government, from the state government. If the new ballot measure for Metro passes, there will be tens of millions of dollars available for safe routes to school for everyone in the 5th District and in the entire county.
Thank you. Mr. Park, your 1 minute response, please.
We have to let everyone know our kids are the most important resource. Other places in the world have figured this out, and they've figured it out really well. All we have to do is we have to copy these models. We need to have more volunteers. We have to have more paid staff. We need to have morning programs in schools. We need to have transportation after school to the sporting events. We have such an easy opportunity where we'll end up spending less money and get far better outcomes. It's a miracle that more kids aren't killed. It is an absolute miracle, and we gotta stop this now. We have to get to the point where every single solitary kid has a safe way to get to school. Because if you don't, all the rest of the money that you spend on school is completely wasted. It's so easy to do what we need to do. We just have to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 6. This question will be directed to Mr. Malone, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer. The LA County Department of Parks and Recreation has completed a needs assessment for recreation facilities and parks throughout all of Los Angeles County. The department was also directed to draft a funding plan to meet the needs outlined in the assessment report. Would you support a ballot measure to raise funds for the implementation of the assessment report? Please comment.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's beyond just taking care of our parks. It also goes back into what we were just talking about with the kids and what Darryl was talking about is supporting our kids. There's many programs also too through Parks and Rec, especially the rec side, where there are a lot of programs that are affordable and directed towards children and families in need that can't otherwise. It gives a place for the so-called latchkey kids to go after school and after school programs, team sports, team spirits. There's a lot of things that Parks and Recs do that we have to make sure the funding is there to continue and that these programs are still there. As far as our other there's also a lot of other issues coming up that we're losing funding for that this covers for the utility of to utilize the parks correctly, be it whether it's restrooms, whether it's taking care of the usage and the maintenance. Several of our parks aren't maintained correctly. This will allow funding to make sure our parks are up to par, usable, and maintained. Policing, restrooms, a lot of utilities. So that's basically it. Make sure that we have the funding for our recs, for the kids, maintenance, funding for protection, and make sure we have enough. Well, we actually don't have enough green space in Los Angeles right now, so this also helps protect our green space and also prevent it going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I do believe that the Board of Supervisors did a very good job in implementing the Parks Needs Assessment planning exercise, where they went to the grassroots communities to hear what the folks really needed in each and every community. Now, how will that be implemented and funded? Well, currently it's funded by Prop A. Prop A, the second phase, actually, which brought about $800 million to the county to buy parks and facilities. We need to extend that. I'm in favor of extending a new parks bond, whether we call it Prop A again or any other name, so we can buy park space in the park poor neighborhoods, so we can get open space and preserve the great foothills that we have and preserve our waterways and give children and seniors and adults the recreational opportunities that they deserve.
Thank you. Mr. Park, your 1-minute response, please.
Given where we are in the 5th District, our parks should be the best in the world. They're not. We don't have to spend that much money to get them to the point where they are the center of everything we do, because they're so fun, they're so amazing, the services there are so good. There's after-school programs for kids, there's sports programs, there's nature hikes, there's all the things that we used to have long ago that you hear grandparents talk about that we no longer do. We have an opportunity for very, very, very little money to take full advantage of what we haven't been. It's there. It's there for us to take advantage of. All we have to do is fully take advantage of it. When I worked in the Office of Management and Budget, they were so good at getting the national parks up to par with some of the other parks, the best parks in the world. We can do that here.
Thank you. Ms. Barger, your 1-minute response, please.
This is a great question because, in part, I worked very closely not only on the original Prop A, but also on the one that failed this last time around. And the reason why I did not support it was because it was from the top down. It was the board dictating to communities what they need. The reason why that I'm inclined to support this is because it is from the bottom up. We took this to the community. We let the communities empower themselves to tell us what their needs are. In addition, if this tax goes through, it'll allow for maintenance, which is something that is always falling to the wayside. We need to address maintenance across the board. not only in the county parks, but also in the city parks. This is not just about unincorporated, this is about our cities. We are going to share this across the board with all 88 cities. So the question is going to be how much? And I think that was discussed today at the board, and I'm inclined to support it so long as it's not so much that the voters will not pass it. So I think we have to be realistic in terms of how much money we ask for.
Thank you. Question number 7. This question will be directed to Mr. Najarian, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond. There is widespread support for enhancing the transportation networks in LA County, which naturally will require significant investment. What types of enhancement would you support, and how would you propose to fund them?
Well, thank you. This is a great question. And I do get to make some of those hard decisions, as I sit on the Metro Board and the MetroLink Board. But my general goal is to remove people from the single occupant vehicle. We have to get people out of their cars. And how do we do that? First, we have an active streets program where people can walk and bike the short distances. We have to have a first mile and last mile system where folks, where their transit ends, they can get by transit or bike or walk to their place of work or to their home. We need to improve transit. I've been instrumental in extending the Gold Line to Azusa. We have to extend the Gold Line further on to Claremont. Just this last month, I was able to finally get funding for an MTA route which connects the Gold Line in Pasadena through Glendale and Burbank to the Red Line and Orange Line station. I'm absolutely against digging 5-mile tunnels to implement freeways, which, in case you don't know, is the 710 tunnel plan. I'm totally against that. It costs way too much money. We have better ways to spend our money, and that is in a sustainable way. Transit really is the best way. Buses are the second best way with a BRT model that the Orange Line is. But we have to get people out of their cars into transit. It'll make for a healthier lifestyle, it'll make for cleaner air, and it will free up capacity on the roadways for those people that can't take transit every day, for those that have those crazy trips, realtors or attorneys or doctors that have to go back and forth. So that's my vision for better transportation for LA County.
Thank you. Mr. Park, your 1-minute response, please.
When you look at the Metro budget, only 9% of that budget is fares. Imagine if maybe you could turn to your rich uncle and come up with that extra 9%. Then we have the worst traffic gridlock anywhere in the world of any industrialized country in LA County. Imagine if you can get 10% of those cars off because Metro is all of a sudden free. It's a teeny tiny amount of money. It's about $30 a person in LA County. To get rid of our traffic problems, to make all of the things that we want to do easy, the solution's been there all along. Other places have implemented it. All you have to do is get folks to be able to use public transportation in a way that makes sense for them. You look at any other city in the world, you have extremely rich people and extremely poor people right next to each other. And our system, it's not. We don't have the system that we need, and it's very easy to get there. We just have to follow what other places have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barger, your 1-minute response, please.
Los Angeles County and LA City is the only major city in the United States not to have a rail system linking to any of the airports. The Gold Line should not stop at Azusa. It needs to go all the way to Ontario Airport. We need to have what they call the Green Line, which goes down the 105, connect to LAX. We need to get cars off the road. We need to do more to do a regional transportation system. We shouldn't be pitting the west side against the east side. This should be a regional transportation approach, and as supervisor and as a sitting member on the Metro Board, my commitment is not only to address the Gold Line moving east, but also to look at light rail possibly moving west, and look at how we can connect to the cities down the South Bay and down in the areas of the west side.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, your 1-minute response, please.
This is a huge issue, and as supervisor, I would invest in robust public transportation. I grew up as a kid in New York taking subways and buses. We didn't even own a car. And so I think critical to any city is to have good subways and good buses. But let me be very clear. While that's very important, and the culture may change in the long term, this is a driving city. We are not going to get Angelenos to leave their cars and take public transportation en masse in the short term. So we have to fix our driving infrastructure. We sit hours and hours in traffic because despite some of the highest taxes in the country, we have broken roads, and by the way, broken sidewalks as well. So we have got to repair our infrastructure to allow driving efficiently and safely in the least possible time. And that's critical in the short term. And then critical also in the long term is to invest in good public transportation.
Thank you. Question number 8. This question will be directed to Mr. Park, and you'll have 2 minutes for your response. If you oppose the 710 tunnel, what specific alternative would you propose?
I don't think I need to take 2 minutes to say put the traffic from the ports into the rail system. I moved here and we bought a little condo, and as part of that documentation process, so you go through and you sign all these papers, there was a piece of paper that said something to the effect of, do you realize that at any point they could put a freeway right through this place you just bought? And I turned to my wife and I was all panicked, and I turned to the real estate agent and I said, what is this? And they said, oh, don't worry, they've been fighting this for more than 50 years. All of the proposals for the 710 do not make sense. The neighborhoods where they're talking about putting either the tunnel or a roadway through are amazing, historic, thriving communities. You don't pave over thriving communities. The health impacts are well understood. It is not something that's smart to do. Hey, you have all these great goods coming in from China. All you need to do is put them on the rails. The rails are very efficient. The throughput is very good. You put all that traffic on there and it's fine. We do not need to destroy our communities for something that doesn't make sense. Everybody knows that that tunnel would be a death trap. And it's not just a death trap, it's a $15 billion death trap. We've seen in other places what happens when there's even a small truck fire. Everybody in that tunnel is going to die. We can do better. We do not need that. Everyone knows we do not need that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barger, your 1-minute response, please.
There are things that can be done now, and while people debate whether or not the 710 tunnel should be built, the crisis is immediate. We should look at things such as reverse flows on streets, better synchronization of our lights, which LA County has done continually throughout the district, and it's shown to have better traffic flow. In addition, we need to move the trucks off the 710. We need to really capitalize on rail to move the goods that are going out of the state anyway, on a rail, out to an inland port, and get the goods movement out of the 710 corridor. So, South Pasadena commissioned a study that showed a lot of different things that can be done and should be done. And we have to invest now. We can't wait for this debate to go on. There are things that can be done now.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. 50 years ago, when the freeways were built, could the 710 have been extended and reached its conclusion? Sure. And on the map, it makes sense. But now, decades and decades and decades later, to now have a plan where you have to either pave over homes that have been there for many, many years, or tunnel under at enormous expense. This plan, the tunneling plan, was estimated to be $5 billion. And I think Darrell is right. It's going to be a lot more than that. We can't justify that. With crime way up, with our schools failing, with quality jobs fleeing LA County, and with our infrastructure crumbling, We can't justify spending billions and billions of dollars, potentially 10 and upwards of $10 billion, tunneling under neighborhoods. I couldn't justify that, and I wouldn't allocate our resources that way.
Thank you. Mr. Englander, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. You know, this issue is generational. It goes back, it's almost like the Hatfields and the McCoys, where it goes back so many years. You have kids fighting the fights that their parents had started. In Pasadena, they passed Measure A to say build the tunnel about 10 or 15 years ago. Now they've changed their mind and saying, we've really looked at it. We have to study all the other alternatives, whether it is re-engineering, looking at and doing a mobility study, looking at how people are moving, and not just trucks, but people who live in Alhambra who are going back and forth to downtown and other places. We've got to look at mobility movement and figure out better pattern and connectivity. We've got to understand that rapid buses that show up in other places actually stop right before schools get out at colleges and universities. We've got to work making sure that those patterns of connectivity work better for connecting people for mobility and goods movement. So that's what really needs to be done. I'm against the tunneling, and I don't think it's ever really going to get off the ground.
Thank you. We now completed the question round, and we will move to the closing statements. The candidates will now have 1 minute each for their closing statement. If a candidate wishes to respond to any question not previously addressed to him or her, they may address it in their closing remarks. Ms. Barger, your closing statement, please.
Well, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity for me to be here tonight. I started working for the Los Angeles County as an intern. I was promoted to become Supervisor Antonivich's Health and Human Services Deputy, and for the last 15 years, I've been his Chief of Staff. I tell people I don't need any on-the-job training. I can hit the ground running. My father was a former insurance commissioner under Ronald Reagan, and he taught me you attack problems, not people. That's why I've earned the endorsement of Mike Antonovich, Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, Governor George Deukmejian, Governor Pete Wilson, and 3 former district attorneys, as well as over 8,000 sheriff's deputies and LA County firefighters. I'm asking for your support and your vote because I am committed. I'm not a career politician. This is my passion. I'm doing this because I believe in the county, and I want to leave this county better than when I found it. So thank you very much, and I'm asking for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. We talked a lot about public safety tonight, as well we should, because it's government's most important job. But there is something we didn't talk about tonight, and I'd like to close with it, and that's the threat of terrorism. We just had an attack on county employees in a county facility in our next-door neighbor county, San Bernardino. Terrorism is real, and it's a problem. I spent a year leading an anti-terrorism team in missions throughout Iraq. I've seen this problem up close and personal. And I know that here in Los Angeles County, to keep us safe at home, not only do we have to fight crimes and gangs, but we have to make sure that we're safe from threats coming from across our borders. You know, we had a threat called into the LAUSD school system. Because of that threat, which was a hoax, 600,000 school children couldn't go to school. As supervisor, I will establish a public safety infrastructure that includes interoperability so that all our agencies can speak to each other, and mass casualty plans that will keep us safe, intelligence systems that will vet threats and keep us safe should the worst happen. And that's my commitment to the people of Los Angeles County. Thank you so much.
Mr. Englander, your closing statement, please.
Great, thank you so much, and thanks for once again for hosting this. This is one of the most important seats. It hasn't been vacant in 36 years in a lifetime, and it's almost one of the most important that affects our day-to-day quality of life. I believe I have the unique experiences as a former small business owner, as the chair of public safety for the region, as a local elected official, as a reserve police officer. Having been on over a dozen nonprofit boards, I don't talk about just what I'm going to do and the issues that are going to happen when we get there. I've actually created a cyber intrusion center to deal with terrorists in the local community. I've actually built nonprofit centers and after-school programs. I've served on the Boys and Girls Club, New Directions for Youth, and the YMCA's as a president and as a volunteer of the year in many different organizations, so I've done that. I know how to work in collaboration to bring communities together. I hope that I can earn everybody's vote. And I'm honored that I've had such a broad base of support. And I ask people to go to my website at www.mitchellenglander.org to learn more. And I hope that I can earn your vote. Thank you so much.
Mr. Huff, your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you. It's been a great evening, and you've heard differences. Certainly, you can't figure out all the differences of candidates in a short time like this. But, you know, while I've been at the state level, I have worked to create jobs, and I said I would work to do that now. And I was pleased to co-author an aerospace tax incentive package that helped bring 6,500 jobs, mostly to the Antelope Valley. I was a co-author of an entertainment industry tax credit of $330 million that even this first quarter were 11% higher than we were. We lost half of our film industry jobs for an industry that is iconic to California. You know, for that, I've received a 100% rating from Cal Chamber, from NFIB. I believe voters should decide on taxes. I've received a 100% rating from Caltax. I believe that we need more parks for our kids, and I've received a 100% rating from the California Parks and Rec Society. You know, I've served at the city council level, at the state level, the regional government level, solving problems. As your supervisor, I will continue to work across the aisle to solve real problems, and I will be the best representative that you can elect. Thank you.
Mr. Kalon, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I did not just move in the district because I ran for the office. I live in this district for the last 25 years. In 2012, I ran for the office with zero contribution, no donation, no gift, no endorsement. I'm running again with no contribution, no gift, no endorsement because I want to be for the people 100%, not for any special interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone, your closing statement, please.
Hi, I'd like to say again, thank you for hosting this. I really appreciate being able to have the opportunity to speak and let our background speak for us. As you know, I mentioned earlier about working from the ground up, and I talked about the foster kids, and I gave you percentages. If you wanted to make a dent in the inmate population, if you want to make a dent in social services, if you want to make a dent in the homeless population, all those can be solved, making a huge dent if we attack it at the level of the foster care system. I have recently made a commitment to walk 30 miles through the entire county so I can see what's going on out there from the ground up. In Lancaster, I walked over to the homeless shelter and knocked on the door. I was invited in, and I was sitting in the office, and they told me that they accommodate 110 people, and the next closest shelter is in Bakersfield. The population of the homeless in Lancaster is between 2,800 and 6,000, depending on what report you look at. So even if you doubled the expense of their homeless shelter, you'd get 220 people in there. That doesn't even give a drop. I believe in going right to the source, even if it takes walking 300 miles to get there. Get the correct information I didn't even know before. I did not know that married couples were not allowed in homeless shelters. They have to be separated. I did not know that. And probably many of us don't. But I intend to promise to go to the route, even if it intends walking 300 miles. Thank you.
Mr. Najarian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Hi, Burbank residents. It's me, Ara Najarian. You may recognize me. I'm the former mayor and councilman from the next door city of Glendale. You've got some great choices in front of you, great candidates. I tip my hat to all of them. But you need to vote for a candidate that has shown by his record that he's going to represent you and fight for your rights. And you know what? I am fighting for your rights. I'm fighting for you at the Metro Board. I've gotten you money for 3 new Burbank buses, the Empire Overcrossing, the Buena Vista train crossing, pedestrian signalization, and many other improvements. We share the same mutual aid with Glendale Police and you. We put our data in Burbank as a safe zone for us. Our fire department covers you, and we dispatch our firefighters to Burbank when you need help. I will fight for you. You know what kind of person I am, and my track record speaks for itself. And I would kindly ask you to consider voting for me for County Supervisor.
Thank you. Mr. Park, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I'm not a professional politician. I'm a budget expert and a policy expert. If you want political expertise, you have a whole bunch of really, really talented folks that have spent their lives doing this. If you want a nerdy budget person, I am the one. We balanced the budget 4 times at the federal level. This did not happen by accident. This happened because problems were actually solved. And once problems get solved, money is saved. Crazy money is saved. Everything you've heard tonight is fixable. It's all fixable. We just have to implement the solutions. And you'll know when those solutions are implemented, because there will be so much more money than there's ever been and so few problems. So please, as you consider your decision, be really thoughtful, but I ask for your vote. My name is Darryl Park, and my website is www.electdarrylpark.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our candidates forum for the county supervisor position in the 5th District. We are grateful to Drew Sugars, the Public Information Officer, and the staff of Burbank Channel, Zanin and Colleen, for their valuable support in making this event possible tonight. We would like to thank all of the candidates for participating in this forum. A vital part of our democratic process is the willingness of individuals to offer their services to represent our community, and we thank all of the candidates for running in this election. The League of Women Voters of Glendale, Burbank, and the League of Women Voters in the Pasadena area would also like to thank both our audience in attendance and those of you at home, and remind you all to vote on June 7th. If you are voting by mail, please be sure to mail in or drop off your ballot so that it is postmarked by June 7th. Thank you and good night.
Nice work.